our simple Nalbinding bag project, we're going to be using a Finnish 2+1 stitch. So I'm going to show you how to get that started, and we'll chain some stitches, which will form the foundational row for our project. So you're going to need your needle and you're going to need your wool yarn. So we're going to start by making a loop that we're actually going to put around our thumb. So you'll need to work several inches from the end of the yarn and either make a slip knot or a overhand knot. Either is fine. Maybe today I will show you how to do with a slip knot. So you put one side over the other side, and whatever end is on top, you're going to feed it through from the back to form like a little loop. And then between holding on with your one hand and pulling with your other hand, it cinches it in and forms a nice little loop here. Which can be loosened or tightened. So actually we want to loosen a little bit because we have to put our thumb through this loop. So here we go, we're going to put our thumb through the loop. We want it to be snug but not super tight, and we will want a tail that we can hold on to with our hand. So my three fingers here are holding onto the string and gives it a little bit of tension. The knot is on the pad side of your thumb, and you're pretty much ready to go. So to begin with, it's sort of easiest to work with shorter lengths of yarn. So even something like 1 arm's length is not a bad length to start with. It just tends to get a little bit less tangled up. And as you start to feel more comfortable, you can start to add longer lengths of yarn. So I'm just going to put this back on my thumb, ready to go. And for the 2+1, the name is coming from the number of loops that are on your thumb as well as the number of loops that are taken off each time. So right now I actually have 1 loop on my thumb, but for 2+1, we need to form 3 loops on our thumb. So I'll show you how to make more loops onto your thumb. So in Nalbinding, the working yarn is always kind of on the top of your thumb. It's going counterclockwise around your thumb. So you can kind of be thinking that the yarn is always encircling your thumb in a counterclockwise direction. So always to sort of get started, you want your yarn to be sitting on top of your thumb like this. You can even hold it a little bit with your fingers as well. So your fingers are doing even some extra work back there, just so it sort of is kind of kept out of your way. Then with your needle, you're going to come in right alongside your thumb. And this is why it's important that this is not super tight, because you actually have to put the needle between the loop and your thumb. So if it's too tight, you're really jamming it, which isn't great. So you want to go under this loop as well as under your working yarn. And very importantly, we want to make sure that that yarn is encircling your thumb. So it's good to kind of close it off at the top here as we pull. Now we've got 2 loops on our thumb, and we want to keep that working yarn kind of off to the side so you see 2 distinct loops. If you're seeing something that's sort of not quite that, make sure that the knot is right again. All the knot and work is sort of on the pad side of your thumb. Now we have 2 loops and our working yarn. We're going to repeat this one more time. So again, sliding under now both loops and the working yarn. You want to be careful when you come down. You're not piercing the yarn. You have to make sure you go completely under everything as you go through. And just as the needle kind of gets out of the way up here is a good time to close up your hand when you pull it through. So we're going to pull it, and now by magic we have 3 loops on our thumb. Don't worry too much about what's going on. We haven't even made a stitch yet so far. And for this, we mostly keep the stitches up fairly close to the end of our thumb, because in the 2+1, there's 2 stitches that stay and 1 stitch that goes. So the top stitch is always kind of peeling off of the others. It's important to keep this order. So this was the very first loop we put on. This was the second loop. This was the third loop. So really, this is the most recent loop, and this is sort of the oldest loop. That order is actually important because the stitches are being made on each of these loops as we go. If you start to put them in a different sort of order, you'll start to see strange things going on in your finished work. So this is important. If you're not really sure if you've got the last one at the bottom, you can do a bit of a test by pulling your working yarn. you should feel some tightening of the bottommost loop. If something else tightens, then it's not right. And you'll rearrange them until you find out which is the one that's in the wrong spot. Okay, so now we're ready to actually make a stitch. So there's a couple of ways. Sometimes people like to pull the stitch up with their needle. You can also just pull it up with your hand. But in any case, you need to have the yarn kind of above because we're going to put our needle through it. Now, we're not putting our needle all the way through. We're just going to use the tip of our needle to pick up the loop. We're going to pivot. And so right now it's kind of like T-shape relative to your thumb. And then we're going to come down very much like that last, putting on that last loop, and follow your thumb along under the two loops and under the working yarn, and making sure we close our thumb again under the working yarn so that it gets trapped there. So now we've actually made one stitch and we're back to 3 on our thumb. So with this, we're always adding one and taking one away. If you are finding you have all of a sudden 2, something has gone wrong. Or if you have 4, also something has gone wrong. You should always be coming back to 3. Now the back end looks like a bit of a mess. So if you wish, you can pull the tail of the work and it will start to kind of come a bit looser and you're going to start to see some stitches. So let me do a couple more just so you can see. Not too tight. I'm going to kind of pull this top one up with my thumb, put the needle in just the tip, twist and down through close to the side of my hand. Sometimes I even help guide it a little bit with my first finger there and pull till you get that nice third loop. Kind of make sure it's all straight. With my other 3 fingers, I'm kind of holding this. That's giving me a bit of tension and it's just controlling where everything is. So let's do another one. So I'm going to pull up the loop through the front, twist, down through all of the work, the 2 loops and the working yarn. So now we're starting to get some stitches forming. It's not as easy to see with the first couple of stitches, but once you've done more, you will definitely start to see the pattern and you can do it a little bit quicker. So our stitches are starting to form up in here. I can take it off even. We can sort of, if we start to sort of pull things around, we'll see that we have our very first stitches. There's one thread that's a little bit loose, but usually if you just kind of pull it around, it all just straightens itself out. And that's our early stitches. If you were to drop the work like this and you want to know how to pick it back up again, you'll want to look at the end, and there is kind of a top and a bottom. So the yarn, when it comes down, is facing on the right way to put it back onto your thumb. If it's facing up or away from you, then it's upside down. So you actually want to turn it this way. You should see, usually, even if you've dropped it, there's 3 big loops. Your worked yarn is not forming big loops anymore, especially if you've pulled the tail. So then you want to get your thumb under your working yarn and then very carefully put your thumb back into those 3 loops again. You can give it all a bit of a snug, pull that a bit, sort of snug it all in, make sure that that bottom loop is the bottom loop that you want. And that's essentially it for our foundation chain. And so we can just make it as long as we want. For a bag, we're actually going to be forming a foundation row, a linear chain foundation row. And then we're going to be turning and sort of doing a spiral around this foundation row. So consider how wide you want your bag to be. And this foundation row should be slightly shorter than that, because as we go around the corners in this spiral, the bag will be getting wider as we go. So start smaller and then we'll build it up through the rows. And I'll be showing you some of these methods in our upcoming videos.